After a decade of being in the Democrat Party, I became a registered independent in 2021. Ultimately, yes, I ended up voting for Donald Trump. Here's the deal. I lived in Seattle. I still live near Seattle. In 2020, BLM and Antifa took over several city blocks in Seattle. They caused over $7 million of damages in the 3 weeks that they occupied those blocks. People were unalived. People were essayed. Okay? It was nothing good. I went there 3 times. I saw it in person. All right? While Kamala Harris is on Stephen Colbert cheering on this violent radical behavior, saying they shouldn't stop and they won't stop, and that defunding the police won't make crime go up, and anyone who disagrees with that doesn't know what they're talking about. It turns out Kamala's a idiot and she didn't know what the she was talking about. This is before she ever became a presidential nominee, so I automatically didn't like Kamala. This is after watching the 2020 debates. Tulsi was my favorite. Kamala was laughable. I was like, who the fuck is this? But either way, so they started pushing BLM, they started pushing Antifa, and defund the police. That was my biggest what the hell. Also, COVID happened. I started paying attention to Donald Trump for the first time instead of just listening to what people were telling me that he was saying, because it was quite important in 2020 to listen to our president because of what was going on. I realized he wasn't the evil dictator that I had been trained to believe that he was. I had been lied to. And my proof in that is because he refused to enforce any sort of federal mask mandates. Of course, vaccines weren't out, but he wasn't going to enforce vaccine mandates. He wasn't enforcing school closures, business closures, all of these things. He left it up to the states, okay? I appreciated that. I'm like, wow, he's not a dictator. He's not misusing his power. He's not taking advantage of the American people. He's actually giving the states the freedom and the right to choose, okay? Deal breaker with the Democrats. Let's just go through it real quick. Deal breakers for me. Men and women's bathrooms. Men and women's sports, children receiving HRT and surgical changes to change their gender, prisoners, criminals, anybody receiving gender reaffirming health care on the American dime. The Democrats also lied, saying that they can't close the border because of Donald Trump, because he blocked the border bill that was trying to give mass amnesty to millions of illegal immigrants that were here, as well as send billions of dollars to Ukraine, okay? Had nothing to do with Donald Trump. Of course, it was a bad bill, but they could have signed an executive order. Look it up. You should do a little bit of research if you disagree with me. But either which way, they started pressing things that I personally am not on board with. As someone who was a vegan for 5 years, I have read a lot about global warming and environmentalism because that's one of the pillars of veganism, okay? I've not read anything that convinces me that we should be taxing the shit out of people in the name of global warming to save them or save the planet, period. So that's another deal breaker for me. I live in a state where there's a lot of global warming tax, okay, here in Washington. It was the same deal in Oregon. Either way, with Kamala's behavior in 2020, as well as these deal breakers for me, absolute deal breakers for me, 100%. DEI in schools, gender theory in schools, deal breaker for me. I view that the same as church and religion in schools, deal breaker for me, absolute deal breaker for me. Another deal breaker for me, banning abortion, banning gay marriage. There's just certain things, open borders. These are all deal breakers for me. So when I had to put Kamala Harris to Donald Trump and make a decision, there were no deal breakers for me with Donald Trump. There were only deal breakers for me with Kamala Harris. Now, you could say, what about Donald Trump's criminal record? And what I would say about that is I've done a lot of reading and I've looked into it. I would say the pardon that Hunter just gave Joe Biden just solidifies my belief that the DOJ had been weaponized and used against Donald Trump for political motivation, just as it was Hunter Biden. I'll leave you with that. But there were many things, and again, deal breakers. So as an independent, if a Republican candidate comes up in 2028 and is like, we're going to ban abortion, we're going to ban gay marriage, I'm not getting my vote. If a Democrat candidate comes up and says, we're going to tax the crap out of people in the name of global warming, we want men and women's sports, we want children to receive HRT and surgeries to change their body in the name of like changing their gender. If they push anything like that, defunding the police, deal breaker for me. If they talk about mass amnesty for illegal immigrants, deal breaker for me. It's that simple. I'm not, at this point, I'm not biased enough in one direction or the other to make any kind of commitment to a party. I'm going to vote based on the policies and the ideologies that are being pushed. I'm going to vote based on common sense. And that's what I did. And I ended up voting for Donald Trump. And as an independent, depending on how the Democrat Party and the Republican Party act, which I believe in the uniparty, and I do believe in the establishment, and I do believe that there is an abundance of corruption within the federal government, and I believe that's one of the big reasons why Donald Trump was persecuted the way that he was, because he's not one of them and he's standing against the actual establishment. I do believe that now. I won't vote for anybody who is pushing deal breaker. And I honestly don't see the Democrat Party backing off on their stuff. I think they're foolish enough to continue to push the nonsense that they're pushing. So I'm not saying I'm voting for a Republican in 2028. In my state, I actually voted for some Democrats, some Republicans, and some independent on the state level. Just depended on who it was and what it was for, who I trusted the most, who had the most sensible policies, and were saying things that I resonated with that made actual sense and wasn't emotionally based. There's that. But thank you for your question. I very much appreciate it. This has been a long video, one of the longest videos I've done in a while. But yeah, have a good day. I had to add this because I realized I left it out. The Democrat Party also started pushing anti-First Amendment bullshit, saying that they wanted to ban the freedom of information and ban the freedom of speech. And that is an absolute deal breaker for them.